fight for the unborn. New developments after the remains of 5 babies killed in abortion are found in the nation's capital. Crisis in Ukraine. Hear from a group trying to help civilians who are fleeing from the military conflict. Obamacare reunion. The president and former president celebrate their signature health care law, how pro-lifers are responding. And Shining Light. A new movie tells the story of a religious sister from Honduras and how she saved thousands of children. On EWTN News Nightly for Tuesday, April 5th, 2022. Thank you so much for being with us tonight on this feast of St. Vincent Ferrer. I'm Tracy Sable. The president of Lebanon has announced that Pope Francis will visit his country in June. President Michel Aoun says that he received the news from the papal nuncio. The Holy See is not confirming the trip just yet, saying a possible trip is being studied. Pope Francis has previously met with Lebanese officials, including the country's prime minister. Lebanon is confronted by a financial crisis compounded by refugee pressure from Syria. An update now to a story that we first brought you last night about the disturbing discovery of aborted babies found at the home of a pro-life activist. During a press conference today, Lauren Handy provided this account of her Catholic care for their dignity.
During the 5 days they were under my stewardship, the 115 victims of abortion violence were given a funeral mass for unbaptized children, and the 110 have been given a proper burial in a private cemetery by a priest.
Handy is a Catholic convert. She says 5 of the babies were nearly full term. For this reason, her group, the Progressive Anti-Abortion Uprising, called in police to request forensic examinations to determine if the unborn were aborted illegally. Katie Yoder is DC correspondent for Catholic News Agency, and she joins us now. Katie, good to see you. Such a heartbreaking story. I know that you were at this news conference today. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, it was a packed news conference. There were about a dozen cameras there, and I think the main revelation today was that the group, Lauren Handy's group called POW, they acquired not just the remains of 5 aborted babies, but they say they acquired 115. And so I think that's the main revelation. They say that they came in a box. They were outside of an abortion clinic, and they say they asked the driver to give the box to them so that they could do a proper burial. And when they opened it, they say they discovered 115. And so I think that's one of the big news highlights that came out of this press conference.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that they're saying that they would like some testing done, some forensic testing, but the police apparently are saying that that's not going to happen. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Sure. So DC police are saying that these babies were aborted in accordance with DC law, but pro-life groups, including Live Action and Susan B. Anthony List, are saying that there needs to be a full autopsy done on these babies' remains. And so they're really calling for that. The Washington Post recently published a report saying that DC authorities aren't planning to do those autopsies, but pro-life groups are really hoping that they can continue pushing for that and that ends up happening.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you can see why. And she said some of the babies were nearly full term. Many of us saw those heartbreaking, gut-wrenching images of those poor babies. And I'm just wondering, I know that you were there and you saw those images, sort of, what went through your mind during that time? And for those who may question what happens at abortion clinics, you really can't deny the horrors once you see those images.
Right. I think images of aborted babies' remains really show the reality of abortion. I think as Catholics, we believe in the inherent dignity and worth of every human person, and we believe that abortion ends a human person. And, during this press conference, one other thing was they showed a video that they said was of them unboxing these remains. And a lot of people couldn't look at them. They turned away because it's really hard to watch and really hard to see. it'll change people, I think, but it's hard to know how to react to these, whether to look at them or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And we pray for those babies. So hard to understand any of that. Before I let you go, we don't have a lot of time left, maybe 30 seconds or so. What else do you think we should know from this story? I know there's more probably questions and answers right now, but I know you'll continue to follow it. But, what do you think we need to know about this?
Well, I think, they're going to continue calling for those autopsies. And I know police are still doing investigations, not on these babies themselves, but into how they're acquired. So I think that there are a lot of details that we'll hear in the upcoming days. But this press conference was a start, and we learned a lot more from it.
Yeah. Well, Katie, thank you so much for taking the time to be here to speak with us about it. We
Thank you
appreciate
for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Well, back together again. Today at the White House, former President Barack Obama teamed up with President Joe Biden to propose a big change to the Affordable Care Act. They want the 12-year-old law known as Obamacare to cover more people by getting rid of what's known as the family glitch. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen?
Tracy, good evening to you. Tonight, President Biden and President Obama want to lower the threshold so more family members can qualify for Obamacare. But tonight, there are some very concerning elements in the Affordable Care Act that pro-life advocates are watching very closely.
Nothing made me prouder than providing better health care and more protections to millions of people across this country.
President Barack Obama back at the White House as President Joe Biden wants to expand Obamacare, especially to those who are currently paying too much in premiums, but are still not eligible for taxpayer-subsidized plans.
Starting next year, working families in America will get the help they need to afford full family coverage.
Affordability aside, pro-life supporters have a major concern with Obamacare. They don't want to see their tax dollars either directly or indirectly pay for abortions. Under the Trump administration, there was a rule that prevented that from happening. But under the Biden administration, the rules have changed. Recently, Senators James Lankford and Cindy Hyde-Smith introduced a resolution to stop the Biden administration from, quote, allowing combined payments for abortion coverage in taxpayer-funded Affordable Care Act health exchange plans, which violates an unambiguous separate payment requirement in that law. Just last month, the U.S. Catholic Bishops' Conference warned the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services that its plans to revise a different section of the Affordable Care Act could impose severe burdens on religious liberty, adding, abortion is not health care. It is the antithesis of health care. And conservative groups like the Heritage Foundation charge the ACA has failed to reduce insurance costs, increase choice, or bend the cost curve down because it depends on a centralized top-down approach. Separately tonight, the Biden administration will freeze federal student loan payments through August 31st. They have been set to resume on May 1st. This applies to some 43 million Americans who owe a combined $1.6 trillion. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
On Capitol Hill, Judge Katanji Brown Jackson picked up support from 2 more Republican senators, paving the way for her confirmation to become the first black woman to sit on the high court. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales has that story. So, Eric, what comes next?
Well, Tracy, Judge Katanji Brown Jackson has picked up 3 Republican senators, Mitt Romney, Susan Collins, and Lisa Murkowski. Now, according to Senator Schumer, who made the announcement just a few minutes ago, a full Senate vote is expected to take place on Thursday, and we're going to go ahead and bring you that as well. But, Republican Mitt Romney told us, we caught up with him, and he told us why he is voting yes.
As a result of our meeting for an hour together and reviewing her testimony before Congress, I became convinced that she's within the mainstream. She's also highly qualified, intelligent, a capable person.
Judge Katanji Brown Jackson continues her visit with senators around the Hill. I spoke with her in the hallway and asked her how she's doing, and she replied, quote, I'm excited. The newest justice, Amy Coney Barrett, a Catholic, spoke at the Reagan Library about changes in her life since joining the High Court.
I think one of the difficult things that I experienced that I wasn't really fully prepared for was the shift into being a public figure, and also security is much different now than it was when I was clerking on the court.
Meanwhile, calls for a war crime trial against Russian President Vladimir Putin intensifies. Russian officials are saying the images of civilians killed in the Ukrainian streets are fake. Republican Senator Dan Sullivan says weapons shipments, intel sharing, and tough sanctions should be part of President Biden's plan.
So to me, that's a winning strategy, and the Biden administration needs to implement that, but think about the actual opportunity to win. And that hasn't been their kind of core analysis from the beginning.
But what exactly is the total plan for Ukraine? Republican Senator Joni Ernst and more than 20 other bipartisan colleagues want to know. They signed a letter to the U.S. National Security Advisor demanding answers, like a complete list of all lethal and non-lethal weapons provided and delivered to date to Ukrainian forces, and a complete list of equipment the U.S. is capable of delivering to backfill NATO members.
All of this together, a lot of different questions that need concrete answers so that we as Congress know better how to respond to the needs of the Ukrainian people.
On the calls for a trial against Russian President Vladimir Putin, House Democratic Whip Steny Hoyer wrote that Vladimir Putin has to face the consequences. He also went on to say that there must be an independent accounting of what occurred, and I agree with President Biden that there must be a war crimes trial once this conflict is over. Even the UN Secretary General is calling for an investigation. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
Coming up, an update on the ongoing efforts to help people fleeing the military conflict in Ukraine. The military conflict in Ukraine continues while the international community works to help civilians whose lives have been turned upside down. Jason Jones is doing just that. The Vulnerable People Project has volunteers at the Poland-Ukraine border who deliver food and supplies and carry out evacuation missions. And joining me now is Jason Jones, who recently just returned back from the Ukraine border. Jason, great to see you as always. Before we talk about Ukraine, I want to talk about something else very disturbing here in our nation's capital, if you don't mind. The 5 aborted babies that were discovered in an apartment here in DC. Talk to us more about that and your reaction.
Yeah, you know, I was on the border of Ukraine when that news story broke, and that story broke my heart. And at the time, we were being inundated with messages from our supporters and friends commending, you know, my team and our work for our courage. And I remember thinking that this organization, POW, and these young activists who made this horrible discovery, they're really they're the most courageous people I know. They're just very brave people. And with the work that we do around the world at the Vulnerable People Project, today is the anniversary of the Baron Massacre in Chinese-occupied East Turkestan, where the CCP rounded up countless hundreds of Uyghur women and forced them to have abortions. And with the hell that Russia has unleashed on Ukraine, or the sorrow that is still unfolding in Afghanistan, the world needs a city on a hill. The world needs a nation state to look up to as a shining example in defending liberty and standing for human dignity. And our nation will never be that city on a hill until the dignity of women and the beauty and dignity of the child in the womb is protected under law.
Oh, Jason, I want to talk now about Ukraine and your experience at the border and what you saw there.
Yeah, the first thing that I was overwhelmed by the response of the people of Poland, the government, but really it's the people, private initiatives that every Ukrainian refugee that makes it to Poland will have a host family. My team, we were at a McDonald's. We had a young woman who had come to the border after 3 days of traveling with her 1-year-old, and she needed to get to Germany. So we brought her back to Warsaw and put her on a plane. On our way back to Warsaw, we stopped at a McDonald's to get food for them. And there was what I thought was a really upscale sort of flea market with great vendors and all kinds of wonderful food. But it was the people of Poland had set up a place to give free food and comfort to refugees as they were making their way to Warsaw from the border. The people of Poland deserve the Nobel Prize. It's really just something else. I guess there's no nation in the world that has more empathy than the people of Poland. So the people of Poland are leading the way and doing a great job of caring for the refugees. But tragically, the great job that Poland is doing is, I think, blinding the world to the hell that is on the other side of the border. Logistics and the distribution of food and medical support to the places most in need in Ukraine has become almost impossible. And so I'm glad that we went there on the ground, because we were able to see firsthand these logistical problems and then partner with other organizations to solve those problems.
Yeah, and can you talk about that? I know that you're doing evacuations. How is that going so far?
You know, the evacuations they're going well. We have one team that's going to some of the most hazardous places in Ukraine to rescue some of the most vulnerable communities. And they were doing this without body armor. We were able to find body armor while we were there and provide level 4 flak jackets and Kevlars for these teams. The evacuations are going forward every day. But for the millions who are being evacuated, there's tens of millions, of course, that are going to not be leaving Ukraine. And they're going to need food, they're going to need medical care, and their safety is going to need to be protected. And what we discovered also, thanks to a religious community that had 12 convents across Ukraine, they shared with us this problem that young women are being put on the trains in the east and sent west alone. And when they get to Lviv, there are Chechen and Albanian sex trafficking gangs that are promising these young women safe passage, but then are being caught in trafficking. And so, at the behest of a religious community in Ukraine, with a partnership with a medical tech company, an American tech company that set up a logistics operation to care for their employees' families, we've partnered with them, and they already were providing 400 beds for refugees. We added Vulnerable People Project added another 400 beds for girls between the ages of 13 and 19. When they make it to Lviv, we quickly we have folks that take them from where they're exposed and vulnerable. We bring them to shelters, and our goal is to add another 1,200 beds in the next 2 weeks.
Well, Jason, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for what you do. God bless you, and God bless your work.
Thank you, Tracy. God bless you.
In Sri Lanka, Catholic priests and nuns are calling attention to the country's economic woes. Sri Lanka is facing its worst economic crisis in decades. There are severe shortages of basic living necessities. The country's cabinet resigned on Sunday in response to ongoing protests. A group of lawmakers wants the president to step down to make way for the appointment of an interim government. Up next, new developments in the trial of a man accused of killing 6 people in a Christmas parade last year. Plus, how a religious sister became known as the Mother Teresa of Honduras. A trial will start this fall for the man accused of killing 6 people in a Christmas parade last November in Wisconsin.
This court is willing to give the defense a start date as late as November, so about 30-day adjournment. And I know that will be challenging, even for everyone involved.
Attorneys for Darrell Brooks Jr. had requested a 6-month delay until spring of next year, but the judge denied that motion, saying a resolution to the case is needed as quickly as possible. Pope Francis has released his prayer intention for the month of April. He is asking the faithful to pray for healthcare workers.
Un buen servicio sanitario accesible a todos es una prioridad.
His monthly video message, the Holy Father especially asks for prayers for the doctors and nurses who work among the disadvantaged. Pope Francis also calls on all governments to make it a priority for everyone to have access to affordable medical care. A new documentary examines the life of a religious sister who helped more than 90,000 children in Honduras escape poverty and abuse.
Yo sentía desde pequeña, habían niños que sufrían mucho.
With This Light tells the story of Sister Maria Rosa. She opened her first orphanage back in 1964 and later went on to build more than 500 homes across Latin America. Sister Rosa died in 2020. The documentary was shown this week at the Vatican. Joining us now from Rome is Jessica Sarowitz, executive producer of the documentary With This Light. Jessica, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it. Congratulations on the film. If you don't mind, can you tell us a little bit more about Sister Maria Rosa and, what inspired you to make this documentary?
Well, thank you, Tracy, for the question. I was inspired to make this documentary because I realized that SOAR's mission work, 70 years of mission work on behalf of lifting up children, over 87,000 children from poverty and providing education, medical care, was so important to capture in film because she was getting older. She was 93 years old, and I knew that her story of, being a spiritual leader, a female protagonist, a heroine. She was considered the Mother Teresa of Honduras, and she played a great role in addressing structural inequities throughout, many different areas of society in Honduras.
Oh, just incredible. And I also understand there was a private screening at the Vatican. Can you talk to us more about that? Who attended, and also what was their reaction to the film?
We had so many just wonderful people attending, from people of the ministry. We had diplomats, ambassadors, people from all just walks of life, and it was amazing. So they really loved the film. There was quite a lot of tears, actually, throughout the film, a lot of laughter, a lot of joy and acceptance, and I can tell that they were truly moved by her story.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, before I let you go, is there anything in particular that you would like more viewers to know about the life of Sister Maria Rosa, maybe something that you couldn't get into the film? And I also understand that she may have been a huge soccer fan.
Oh, she loves soccer. And I think what's really important about this film that the reader should know is that she was always ministering to the people, to the children. And even, in her last days, because she got COVID and she was very, very ill, she went into the hospital. She came out because she said, please don't keep me here. I need to be with my people. So she was only in there for just a few days, and then she got sick again. They put her back in, and once again she said, I need to come out. I cannot be here more than like a day or two, and I need to minister to my people, and that's my life. That's the role of a Franciscan nun, and my people need me. So, to her last days, all she did was think of others and her great mission work.
Well, and if people wanted to see this film on their own, how could they do so?
Well, right now we are submitting to film festivals, and so, just everyone be patient because we're waiting for this whole process, because that's the way it works in the film industry, and hopefully we'll have some good news soon.
Okay, we'll be praying for you. Thank you so much, Jessica. It was great talking with you. Jessica Sarowitz, executive producer of the documentary With This Light. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And finally tonight in Rio de Janeiro, it was 100 years ago when construction began on the statue of Christ the Redeemer. Cardinal Don Orani Tempesta led a commemoration yesterday at the foot of the renowned statue, which overlooks the city. Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro was present. During the ceremonies, a protocol was signed to begin the transfer of the Christ the Redeemer statue from a state agency to the Catholic Church. We thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. We leave you tonight with two ballerinas, one from Russia and one from Ukraine, performing together as a fundraiser for the Red Cross. They are dancing to a piece by Frédéric Chopin. Enjoy. Good night and God bless.